Welcome back to the Curate for Women Network, also known as Completely Unconfused. Today we are with Mr. Tramelle Howard, who is the Director of Ed Trust in Louisiana. Hi, Tramelle.
What's up, Victoria?
Tramelle is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but today we are in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C.
Yes, we are in D.C. The National Ed Trust Office is in D.C., so we're excited to be in D.C. Excited to have you in D.C. and welcome you to our beautiful office. I love this place. It's a very majestic place, and to get you a piece of my world.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure.
So we have literally talked about doing this forever and ever, amen. But I think the timing is so perfect because of literally what's about to happen in our education system, or what could happen, right? And so I think it's an important conversation to have, and I think that you are the perfect person to have this conversation with me.
Absolutely.
You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, Tramelle, in Baton Rouge, when you grew up, who was the person that saw you as a child, that sparked your career today, and how do you pay that forward?
Such a good question, and I think it's a tiered question. I think that there were so many people who saw little Tramelle and knew that I could do anything in the world. So I'll just kind of take you through a journey of those folks. So first, always, I talk about my mom. My mom had me as a teenager, and she sacrificed so much of her life to ensure that I had what I needed in order to be successful. So shout out to my mom. Shout out to her beating the odds, defeating the odds to raise me. Second, my grandparents. My grandparents were that village in my life that really provided me with the opportunity to just do whatever I want. There was nothing that I said that I wanted to do that I couldn't do. They made it happen. They made the resources happen. They made it happen in however they could. My grandfather only had a 9th grade education, but he literally put our family on his back to ensure that we had not only the things that we needed, but the things that we desired. It wasn't always like, this big fancy house on the hill, but it was exactly what we needed at the moment and to take care of us. And then my grandmother, the matriarch of our family, is just, I don't have the words to describe what she means to me. Mm-hmm. The words to describe how she put so much of herself to the side to ensure that not only my mom, but me as her first grandchild was, successful. And, we joke in my family now about me being the favorite grandchild, the favorite kid in the family. But it really was just a lot of love surrounding me. I also want to talk about my uncle. My Uncle Larry, shout out to my Uncle Larry. He has always loved me dearly as it relates to just my life in general. Since I was a kid, he called me the professor. And so when I grew up to actually be a professor, it was just so many things about what it means for a person to speak into your life. He married my Aunt Kat, but it was never like a uncle by marriage. Like that family, my Auntie Kat and my Uncle Larry, like truly raised me. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, rest in soul to my Auntie Janice. She saw me in so many ways when other people didn't. She saw me not only to see me, but provide the resources to take me to whatever heights I needed to be. I'll never forget, I wanted to go to Southern Lab. And my family was like, we're not paying for you to go to school. So I went to church with my Aunt Janice. And I told her, I was like, I want to go to Southern Lab. And they telling me no. And she was like, well, they're going to have to figure it out. She wrote me a check for my first semester of school and was like, they're going to figure out the rest. And they did. And so it's just like people like that. Who just really paved the way. I mean, I think about going into school level, people like Mr. Beasley, Miss Poray, Miss Jamerson, Miss Hall, my principal, Miss Brown, my guidance counselor, people whose names I still remember to this day, who really played a role in my life. I get into Southern Lab, Mr. Coleman, Miss Aguilar, Miss Watson, Miss Brown, Miss Welsh, like those are the people, Uncle, like Mr. Joe, like all of those type of people continuously, still to this day, pour into my life, and they saw me. And so there was no limitations to my life. I felt like I could do whatever I wanted to do.
I love that. First of all, there's so much power in speaking into a child. You're absolutely right. And I think that it is so telling, too, of all the love that you received growing up, because we always laugh at the fact that you have such professional jobs, but you still show up extraordinary, like you do not care. And I love that. Yeah. I'm gonna wear hoop earrings. I'm gonna wear a suit with my chest out. Like
I mean, I think that's part of like what I literally believe is my job in this world
Yeah.
is to show people that you can be true to you
Yeah.
and be authentic in yourself
Yeah.
and still do the work and get work done that creates impact in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Listen, my favorite rapper is Lil Boosie. All right, not Boosie, but Lil Boosie.
Boosie.
Like, and so it's like that's not changing. Like, I love to have a good time. If you know, most people know me probably from the Jigga Train before they knew me in the boardroom, and so it's like that is just who I am, and I believe in authentically showing up as Tramelle. I'll never forget when I ran for office. I told my campaign manager, if I cannot be Tramelle, I don't want to do
Don't
this.
want to do it.
I don't want to be in this work. I don't want to be in this space. Like, I want to be able to show up in every space that I occupy as my authentic self. And I do it, and I'm unapologetic about it.
Do you think that this really came from how your family loved on you? It's like they love me so much that nothing else, there's nothing and nobody that can make me think that I am not.
So, when I tell this story, people always, or when I say this, people always like look at me like, Tramelle, you're not telling the truth. But I'm really a shy person. Like, like I'm really like.
Tramelle, please.
No, for real. Listen, just hear me out. So it's like, it's really a level of comfort like that I when I'm around people that I would like really vibing with, like that I can really just like ball out. But I think the ability to show up as my authentic self has been a growth stage.
Yeah.
It's been something that I've developed into. But yeah, like I just really believe that it's power in being who you are. And I think that love that my family showed me helped. The support that my family showed me helped. Because it doesn't always like work for everybody. Like everybody is not comfortable with being who they are, and so they like try to like make you not be who you are.
Absolutely.
And so that's like a balance. But like I tell people every day, like if I can't be Tramelle, I don't want to be in the space.
Yeah, it is very hard to believe.
For real,
You as a shy person, and we have known each other literally our whole lives.
our whole lives. But I really am. So
A part of me can I can see this like a little tad bit, but you're like the person that starts the party.
Yeah,
You gonna be the person that's gonna end it too. Like,
yeah. I mean, and I think that that's the part of why people have such a hard time believing, because people expect you to always show up in that way and show up so free and ending and starting the party. And so so I'm a tad bit shy.
Okay. So all of these people poured into you. These are the people who showed up for you. How do you now pay this forward?
Such a good question, such a loaded question. So I believe that there is power in being. I believe that there's power in belonging, and I believe there's power in just showing up for people the way they show up for you. And so I can never pay back with any monetary resource to my grandparents, to my mom, to my aunts who like basically helped raise me, to the people who poured into my life for me to actualize who Tramelle is today, the person who y'all see every day. But I still, to this day, I show up for people. I show up for people in whatever capacity that I can. And my work is rooted in advocacy to ensure that students who not only look like me, but students who come from marginalized communities, students who come from low-income backgrounds, have the ability to see themselves and be exposed to success in order to actualize success. I think oftentimes people just need a shot. They need an opportunity to be exposed to something that they can actualize. I didn't just wake up every day and was like, oh, I'm gonna be a lawyer because I'm gonna be a lawyer. But I was exposed to what does it mean to truly follow your dreams, to be anything in the world that you want to be. And so that's how I pay it forward, is by ensuring that in the work that I do, that I'm removing and advocating to remove barriers so that students can actualize themselves, people can actualize themselves, communities can actualize themselves. And now I spend a lot more time with my mom. I take her on trips. I was just telling you earlier, she's worried me about a trip now. But I try to do what I can to show up for the people who showed up for me. And it's all love. I love it.
I love that. And this is one of the things that I love the most about you, is how you show up for the people you love. I see a lot of people in professional places that I know are there because of you and your connection or your belief in them, and allowing them to see something better for themselves. And so I think that, it's not just with children. I think that you show up like this for your friends. I think that you show up like this for your colleagues and, of course, your family.
No, I appreciate that. I think, I think that we get caught up in a world where people get power and they want to keep it all for themselves. The purpose of power is for you to get it in order for you to release it back out into the world. And so my releasing the power that I've been afforded the opportunity to be exposed to is releasing it back into the world. Like if you are walking in a door and shutting it behind you, like you are not really as powerful as you may think. But if you're walking in a door, keeping it open and going to the elevator to get more people, like you're really elevating and changing generations of people. And so I believe in whatever I'm exposed to, I want to expose my friends to it. I want to expose the people around me to it. It could be something as simple as Southern Classic Chicken, like we had, or something as like being in a boardroom in DC. Like those are the things that like give me joy, and like me seeing other people with joy brings so much joy to me.
I thank you for exposing me to Southern Classic Chicken. And I also thank you for exposing me to, I had a little slither of this chicken last night, and I'm going back and I'm getting it today. What is the name of this place?
So it's Stan's
Stan's
in DC.
And let me tell you, Stan's really reminds me of an HBCU. We were walking in the door, Ross and I were walking in the door, and there was like 4 older black guys that was like, oh my God, they done made it to Stan's. And we was like, okay.
No, Stan's is that place.
Yeah, it felt like love, but that chicken tasted like.
I can't wait to eat it with you guys. Like, it's gonna be great.
The hot sauce drizzled on. Okay, I'm just kidding.
It's great.
I'm not kidding though. We about to tear down today. Okay, so tell me about EdTrust. What is EdTrust? I know that this is a national organization, but I want to talk about it on a national level, but specifically, how do you all advocate for children in Louisiana?
Yeah, so EdTrust is a national organization, but we have roots across the country. We are rooted in DC, where the organization has been and founded as a national office, but I am the state director for EdTrust in Louisiana. Our organization specifically looks to eliminate and remove barriers for students of color, students from low-income black backgrounds, as well as students from marginalized communities. Our goal is to help people understand through policy recommendations, through research, through data collection, what is the experience for like all students? How do we break data down into subgroup data to look at what's happening for women on college campuses, like what's happening for black women with student debt, what's happening for black students as it relates to dual enrollment access, what's happening to students as it relates to just their experience when they don't have the resources that their peers do, specifically, in many cases, their white peers. And so like, how do we actualize success to eliminate barriers through policy, advocacy, and research for that group of students? And in Louisiana, we do the same thing. People often can see data and they're like, oh, that school is an A school, but isn't it an A school for every student who's going through it? And so we're here to advocate to remove barriers so that every student can actualize their full potential through education.
Make it plain for us. What are these events, these programs that you have in place? What does it look like when you actually collect data? How do you do that?
So I am a organizer at heart. And so when I say organizer, like organizing people is like my jam. I got my start in policy work through the South Louisiana Coalition for Education. Shout out to Kristen Smith, my co-founder. We started that literally as organizers in education, wanting to make a difference and create impact for teachers across Baton Rouge. And so we did that. And so for us, organizing just means like coming directly to the people to understand their stories, to elevate their stories. So for example, right now we are working on an initiative for Black male educators in the state of Louisiana. We are going from school to school across the state of Louisiana to understand the experience for Black male educators, creating a narrative based off of the stories that they tell us, and then policy recommendations to policy leaders and change agents about here's what we're hearing from the ground, and here's how policy can change the experience for those folks on the ground. Oftentimes, people in my world, they do policy, but they are so far removed from the people who it actually impacts that they don't understand it. So my job in the Louisiana office is to ensure that everything that we're advocating for is coming directly from the people who are experiencing it. The second piece, we're currently working on a campus culture and climate survey for higher education. And so what we're currently doing is we have campus ambassadors across the state of Louisiana at colleges, in some in other states, and we are going to learn from students on these campuses what is happening to your college experience based off of the policies and laws that are being passed across the country. We're living in a time where things like DEI are under attack, and programs that are literally helping students get from not only admission but to completion to actually acquire a degree are under attack. So our job is to go to these schools, hear from the students directly, and provide recommendations to policy agents and change agents and policy leaders around what they can do to help change the outcomes for students based on the experience, not of Tramelle, but of these students who are currently experiencing whatever they're experiencing.
I think that's very key because sometimes I think national organizations can actually miss it on the local level because you only have a balcony view. So I think that that's very important that you guys have like placed yourself on the dance floor and now you get to see like, and though a balcony view is important, right? You got to have an overhead view of what's happening, but I think it's important to kind of get in the dirt a little bit and really see and understand how people are living and being able to live their experiences with them so that you can create policies to change the things that are not working for them.
I mean, I think the balcony view is, to your point, very important, but I think it's you have to be intentional about here, even if you're going to give a balcony view, you have to come off of that balcony and get in the street and talk to the people who are experiencing whatever you're talking about, because I think we miss an opportunity to elevate their stories while also changing policy that can create impact for them by not hearing their stories or not being intentional about getting information about their stories. So as advocates, we have to do better at getting to the ground to talk to people and not be so far removed so that you can truly understand the advocacy that's necessary.
What are your thoughts about dismantling the Department of Education, and what does that look like if that actually happens?
Yeah.
But let's break this down a little bit further. What does that look like for our babies who are in K through 12? What does that look like for them?
Yeah. So first of all, like if we're going to go into election talk, let me just start or just lay a foundation that I believe that what happened on November the 5th was in direct opposition to the things that Tramelle believes in.
Okay.
I believe that we are a society of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I mean is that America is a gumbo pot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that during this election cycle, you had one side of the aisle that talked about the humanitarian of people and seeing people as people, and another side of the aisle that used our difference to create collective chaos.
Yeah.
And I think that people miss that piece. Like for Tramelle, I can't benefit from an economy from someone who doesn't see me as a person.
Yeah.
So for people who talked about the economy as like their driving force or why they voted, if you think about the picks for the cabinets up until this point, none of them are economical experts. So was the campaign truly about the economy, or was it about creating chaos amongst our difference? And so that's the first piece before we even get to the deal.
Amongst our difference.
So because the fights before this election were not about, like, people talked about like the economy is what I care about, but we all know if I don't see Vicky as a human, whatever I have that can benefit Vicky, it's not going to Vicky. Because I don't see her. And so like the idea of being valued, seen, and heard is real. And so I think in this election cycle, before we get to the DOE, that this was a direct opposition to the things that I believe in as someone who loves, values, and see people no matter the differences that we share.
You know, I used to think I agree that you can have different points of view as it concerns your political beliefs, right? Like I do believe that Republicans can be best friends with Democrats.
Yes, for sure.
But I think that this is more about morals and less about your political party. You know, it's more about like how, like what you said, like how do you see people? How do you value them? How do you value people who don't look like you, who don't come from the same background as you? Like, I want to also point out that this is not a political platform. But I think that you must pay attention to politics because everything about it affects every single part of your life. And so as a mom with young children, as a bonus mom to my son who is about to go off to college in the next year or so, this is a very scary time for me.
I mean, and I think that that's the real part of it. Like you asked the question about the DOE, and we'll get to like some of I have my notes so that I can be clear on like facts on like
Yeah.
what that means. But I think that that's a reality that I'm currently living in as it relates to the work that I do. Every day I work and wake up and work on behalf of people who share some level of difference.
Yeah.
People who are not exposed to the level of resources that even myself have been exposed to.
Yeah.
People who are like just trying to figure out what does opportunity look like for them so that they can actualize the American dream.
Yeah.
And so there is policy difference.
Yeah.
There is a lot of policy difference that exists. Me and you don't agree on all things as it relates to like making things happen for communities.
Yeah.
But we both agree that the humanity of people is a real thing.
Yeah.
And that we live in that humanity of people and we understand that you are human even through our difference. And so like this election for me was definitely that. It was an opportunity to be like, if you over there, I ain't seeing you. I can't really see you because it's not that I think that we should capitalize the T and it should be navy and you think that you should capitalize the T and it should be yellow. This is literally like you don't see people. This is a nation of immigrants.
Yeah.
When we came to America, there were like, first of all, our people were drug over here in boats.
Come on.
If we're being clear. And then we built this country up to actualize to where you can have someone like Kamala run for president.
Yes.
But there are natives who are here. So this is a country of immigrants.
Yes.
So the idea that we use that to create chaos amongst our difference is crazy. But I think people have been so fueled by misinformation, so fueled by like a lack of education. Because if we're talking about education, we're getting to education. When you looked at the electorate of like the exit polls of like college educated folks versus other folks who like, there is just a lack of education that exists within this country. And we thrive off of being a microwavable society.
Yeah.
And we're no longer slow cooking anything.
Yeah.
And so like we have to do better at getting information to our people to make them more informed. But not to make, this is my last political thing, like the particular candidate that we're talking about, he talked about if he ever ran for president in this country, he would target those that are less educated in order to ensure that he can get his platform across.
He absolutely
And he executed on that.
He did.
And so we as a people have to become a more informed
Yeah.
voting member of society. I mean, the reality is, and then I'm gonna open up my phone to get into these numbers, but the reality is that America as a country is a browning country.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things to be said about a country that is browning, which means that there are more populations of people
Yeah.
who don't fit the supremacist norm of what this country was founded on. And so there has to be machines, because if you're taking a group of people who have been in power all of their life and creating less of them, and the America is browning, like people have to respond to that because everybody wants their power. So like, how do we keep our power? And so that's some of the things that we're seeing.
Well, we have to educate ourselves and we have to understand what's happening. Because when you said that, you know what I thought about? This country is browning. This is our rule, right? Like, let's bring it back to the beginning. But if everybody is not on one accord, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen to the
It's going to burn.
It's going to burn. And so,
and this is a country, we say this is a gumbo pot. This is and we about to jack up our gumbo. Well, we've already jacked. We need to recover.
For 4 years, we have to recover. And I think that now more than ever, it's more than, it's time for us to activate. I sit in my depression for a couple of days after post November 5th, but it's time for us to activate and figure out like, what is the impact that you want to see for the world?
Absolutely.
And people talk about like, oh, I don't do politics. If you don't do politics, politics is going to do you every single time. So getting into that DOE question you asked me about, these are just some startling numbers about what happens or who the Department of Education currently serves.
Yeah.
Like students, their makeup, their population. So I had to bring these notes because it's startling the amount of impact that if we lived in a world that dismantled the Department of Education, who would be affected? Because people are like, oh, my kid, 26 million kids served under Title I. So Title I schools are basically the schools that they're not like fully funded is whatever, how you want to, but they have less income happening in the school. So 26 million kids, the Department of Education actually supplements money into Title I schools. So that's 26 million kids. 7.4 million students with disabilities served by IDEA. IDEA is basically the program that specifically serves students with disabilities. So that's 7.4 million students. 850,000 students served in full service community schools. 6.6 million Pell recipients. Some people only went to school because of Pell Grants.
Come on, here.
Hello? I was just about to say present. So, so when you start thinking about like the impact, it's not just K-12. It goes all the way to people who are trying to actualize education through 5 million ELL students served with Title III. So there are 5 million students who come to these schools as English language learners. We are, as a former teacher, I know that we are already not serving them to the full capacity. The DOE supplements that. 200,000 students served by 21st century learning centers. So there's learning centers that young people are in, DOE. 1.1 million students experiencing homelessness. So students who are homeless, DOE, supplemental income. 250 HBCUs. The department does a phenomenal job, I think, even in this last administration, of continuously investing in HBCUs. Have we actualized HBCUs just yet? No. But again, they are providing supplement. So when I think about like this idea that we dismantle anything, first of all, like it's going to be, with the current makeup of the country, like they're not just going to dismantle the Department of Education because the president says so.
Right.
There are things that are in place, Congress, the courts that can stop that. Mm-hmm. But the reality of what we're living in is we've seen that this is literally like living in a dictatorship.
Yeah.
To where the things that I say are Bible, and that's what people do. And so I don't want people to get too comfortable like, oh, it's going to take the world for this to happen. It can very well happen, but there is a process that's currently in place in government that could potentially stop it. So when we think about the Department of Education, when we think about education in general, when we think about voting for the economy, you know what drives most economic decisions in communities? Education. People leave places and take jobs based off of the educational systems that exist within communities. Yeah. So I would argue that the only E word that is important to keeping this thing afloat is education. It's not, education is driven by the economy. You produce talent through education that can filter jobs, education. So people understand how to make money and grow wealth through being educated. So education is truly the driving force of the economy. So when people say, oh, I voted for economy, it's like, you should have voted for education. Right. And what does that look like in your community? And it's like, how does that matter? And so no matter if you are done with school, if you don't have school-age kids, the economy that you say you voted for is driven by education. So to dismantle that, we're not gonna, like, literally the response to COVID and COVID dollars was through the federal government, which is what kept our schools afloat during a national pandemic. Can you imagine Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, or whomever having to sit as individuals within states and decide how do we respond to a national pandemic with the budgetary foolishness that we already have going on in some of our locales? And so it's like, there is a regulatory body known as the Department of Education. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. Can they be better? Absolutely. But they are literally in place to ensure that there are principles around equity, principles around inclusion, principles around belonging. So even if equity is not the word that you look for, there is a such thing as equity as a student with disability. Black and brown students are not the only students that exist in this country with disabilities. And so, no, again, if you don't do politics will do you regardless. Yeah.
And it's so funny too, because a lot of what we've been hearing, even from minorities, is like, oh, well, I make a lot of money, but I'm like, do you? Are you in that tax bracket? Because it's given middle class is about to be depleted. Okay. And I think because typically we have grown up so poor that when we make it to middle class, we really do believe that we are wealthy.
Victoria, I think that's another piece of this that has driven me crazy. God has blessed me with a decent job,
Yeah.
like a decent living. But guess where I'm not at? I'm not in the 1% of people
Come
of
on.
earners in this country. So literally, when we think about the decisions that have been made and the decisions that we're living through, like that is literally impacting 1% of people. And I can guarantee you, the people that is on your blue app or your Instagram, it's not us.
not y'all.
It's not us. Like, let me just put myself in
When
there.
I listen to this, I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all, I really hate this for y'all. But then at the same time, it's like we at a certain point in our life, we're gonna have to reap what we sow.
Yeah, and
Right?
I think that's
We're gonna
that's
have
part of
to
it.
eat the food that we cook, and but we also have to eat the food that you cook. And so here now we all got burnt roof. Our gumbo is a hot mess because you don't know how to do a
Yes.
group project.
Because you can't do a group project. And it was a group project, so like me. Listen, shout out to the 92%, if you know, you know. Shout out to the 78%, if you know, you know. Like, I mean, it is literally like not even crackers as we like scooping in our gumbo can save like the flavoring and the things that are happening with this gumbo. But I think that for the next 4 years, well, not even next 4, because in 2 years we'll have like some congressional seats come up that we could take charge of. But it has to be a reality check.
Yeah.
If they're going to do everything that they say they are trying to do,
Yeah.
we all will feel some of the impact. I am still like in the work that I do, developing and going through some of the things that happened in 2016.
Yeah.
Just the empowerment of people.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, but like the empowerment of people to just live in their real truths. Like people have been hiding behind masks and everything else for a long time, but this movement has empowered them to come from behind those masks and really do those things. And so we're experiencing it like in our own state. And so like we just have to like be mindful of like, if we don't do politics, it will do you. And if you are not getting what you are desiring from government, because we all use government, not just people who are on welfare, not just people who get food stamps. Government is like how this world works. You live in America. It's a democracy. So it's all of those things. But I think collectively as a group, we have to decide what do we want to be true for the people. And even when we're against barrier after barrier, we have to keep chugging, because I'm allowed to be in a building like this today because somebody kept chugging. Even when they would tell them no, they kept chugging, they kept coming up. So that's what I think we have to think about.
So now that we're here, how do we do our part? Like, how do we really survive what is to come?
I think you have to.
Your opinion.
Yeah, I think you have to be vigilant. I think you have to be active, even if you don't believe in like full out advocacy. Like finding your tribe of people within your community to have real conversations about, to ensure that you're like. We were just talking about this earlier before we started. Information is at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And so the idea of not knowing is not an excuse anymore. Like information is at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Find you someone who you entrust. Like, listen, the amount of people who call me when it's election season, when it's time to make decisions about schools and all that is crazy. But those folks have trusted me to make a decision that's in their best benefit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be Tramelle. It doesn't have to be Victoria. It doesn't have to be a news outlet. But find someone in your circle that you can trust to give valid information.
Yeah.
Stay vigilant. Become active. Reach one, teach one. Figure out how can you truly make your mark in society. And it doesn't have to be large. You don't have to reach 1 million people. Reach the 5 that you can reach, and let's make this thing work. But I think people have to be vigilant. You have to stay in tune to what's happening and the things that are happening around you.
And I also think that you just have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
So many of us as adults, we don't understand our civic responsibility. And we don't even really understand how our government is even made up. So that's why we get so scared when we get a new president or we get a new mayor or we get a new, whatever the top dog is in our space. And it's like, well, they also there's other things that contribute to allowing them to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I think that if we can also educate ourselves, I think that we might be okay.
Yeah.
But to close this out, Tramelle, with the man that you are today, wait, I got two questions for you. You live your life as an advocate, and so what we have done with bringing men on to curate is we are acknowledging that you are our allies.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what does it mean to you to be an ally?
I think for me to be an ally, especially for women, like I stand on the shoulders of women in my life who have cultivated like a relationship and an opportunity for me to actualize who Tramelle is. I mean, I think it's no secret. We've had a whole conversation that I haven't mentioned my father not one time.
Yeah.
We have an estranged relationship. My father and I still see him. He's still around. But we don't have the best relationship, and I think that's okay. Like that's now acknowledging a vulnerability. I wish it was different.
Yeah.
I wish that my father and I had a different situation.
Yeah.
But as a 35-year-old man, like I have accepted the reality of what that is. There are people who are around him, like my auntie, who I love. My stepmom, I think thinks the world of me. But so that is just the reality of what I live in. So I have stood on the shoulders of women in order to actualize who I am as a person. And so to be an ally means that, like, there will be no Tramelle without Dorothy. There will be no Tramelle without Shawanda. There will be no Tramelle without, T. Janice, T. Cat, and all of these women who have poured into me. So to be an ally means to, like, I don't understand the reality of what they go through, but I understand that the reality of their being a Tramelle is women. Yeah. And that's being able to stand up for women and stand in the gap for women and advocate on behalf of for women. Like, I don't I was talking to Jaleesa, shout out to Dr. Thompson. We were in a conversation the other day and there was something I wanted to say. And I was like, Jaleesa, I don't know if I should say this because, women gonna think I'm attacking. And she was like, no, so here's how you say it. But it's like, it's people like that who continue to keep me afloat.
Yeah.
I think about like Sierra and I think about like people like Skipper and I think about Amber and I think about Mimi and I think about like all of these women who are in my life, Sharika, Callie, Tori, like Melissa, like Sierra, like all these women who I think the world of.
Yeah.
And like, my little sister, like my little sister adores me. Like, shout out to Nene, like my little sister adores me. And so like, it's like when I think about like these women, there are so many women who mean so much to me.
Yeah.
So shame on me for not being an ally. Like, I think even in this, to not go back to the election, but there were like a lot of people who like reproductive rights was on the line.
Yeah.
And I thought about
my
little sister who one day wants to have children. Thinking about like the things that my mom went through, even giving birth to me, and like thinking about the things and the experiences I know of people who are close to me who went through in the midst of trying to give birth and what that means for their health. So shame on me for not being an ally. So an ally is a person who supports you, a person who is intentional about getting information to advocate for and with you. And so to me, being an ally is the greatest level of support that a person can have.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for being an ally.
Of course.
Okay, so with the man that you are today, what is Big Tramelle telling little Tramelle?
Big Mel, hey. Oh man, so many things. I think the first one that I will tell little Tramelle is you are enough. You are worthy. You belong. And your energy will make someone actualize who they are. And so when I think about you are enough, growing up in the community that I grew up in, oftentimes people didn't feel like they were enough. People didn't feel like, in my experience or coming from where we were coming from, like that you were enough to do anything, but like you are enough and you can actualize who you're. Like the world is so much bigger than Fieldtown, USA. Shout out to my neighborhood, love it. But the world is bigger and the world needs you.
Yeah.
You are worthy, just in simple terms, like you are worthy to be enter into any space that you want to be in, and you belong there. I think imposter syndrome is real, especially for people who had to like constantly fight through barriers. But you belong, and you can do anything. And like we say, it's so cliche, but I am so thankful that Big Tramelle can look at little Tramelle and sometimes like the shy part, I don't realize like the impact always that I have on other people's lives. And I think for me, I had a moment like where I was like, oh, getting a little choked up, where people say the things that I mean to them and I'm literally just being who I am.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think about the importance of being, like literally me showing up as Tramelle changes people's lives.
Yeah.
and gives them the energy and the strength and the courage to keep going,
Yeah.
whether it's on the dance floor or in the boardroom.
Yeah.
And so I think I would tell little Tramelle that like who you are is going to change people's lives
Yeah.
by just being you.
Yeah.
And that's enough. So,
Yay.
yeah.
Oh, Tramelle. That is so good. First of all, thank you for being such a great ally. Thank you for being so courageous to use your natural gifts to stand up for other people. Your whole life, like I said, is an advocate.
Yeah.
You know, you do a lot of things specifically for other people, and you see people, and we value that. And so I'm so excited that you got to come and do this with me.
This is great. We've been talking about it forever.
So I'm ready to go skip down the street.
Skip down the street. Can't wait. Favorite part.
And make up our secret handshake.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for joining us today. If you are interested in keeping up with Ed Trust Louisiana, Tramelle, please let the people know where they can find.
Yes, we are on Ed Trust Louisiana, Ed Trust LA on all social media platforms. You can also look us up at www.edtrust.org. I am Tramelle.Howard on all social media platforms. So I look forward to you joining the rest of the journey of being Tramelle.
Yay! Till next time. Bye.
Bye, y'all.